Rain pounded against the tarmac at Portland International Airport, lightning flashing across a dark sky. Inside the cabin of Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 307, a man in a dark suit calmly handed a note to a flight attendant. Not a word had been spoken yet, but the contents of that note would soon plunge the plane, the crew, and the nation into a nightmare. Before we go any further, tell me where you are watching from right now, and if you love scam-related and criminal stories. Subscribe to ScamSphere so you do not miss what comes next, because this hijacking was only the beginning. The man, later known only as D.B. Cooper, claimed to have a bomb. He was quiet, polite, and methodical. No one suspected the scale of what he was about to do. He handed the note discreetly to flight attendant Florence Schaffner, who thought at first it was just a poorly written request for a seat change. But when she read it, her heart sank. Cooper demanded $200,000 in cash for parachutes and a fuel truck standing by at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. He did not shout. He did not panic. Yet, in that moment, he controlled the fate of 36 passengers and 6 crew members. The plane was a Boeing 727, a short-haul aircraft with a rear air stair that would later play a critical role in Cooper's escape. Flight attendants tried to stay calm as Cooper outlined his plan. He instructed that the ransom money be delivered in knapsacks and that the passengers remain seated. No one had ever hijacked a commercial airliner with such precision. It was not chaos. No, it was choreography. As negotiations began on the radio with authorities, Cooper moved throughout the cabin with ease, blending authority and menace. He was clean-shaven, dark-haired, and wore a business suit with a demeanor that suggested calm confidence. Passengers recalled a quiet intelligence, a man completely aware of the stakes, fully in command. None of them suspected he would vanish entirely, leaving the FBI with the most confounding mystery in American criminal history. When the plane landed at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, FBI agents were ready. Airport personnel delivered the $200,000 and $20 bills along with 4 parachutes, while Cooper methodically checked each item. He gave precise instructions. Only 2 crew members would remain aboard during the subsequent flight back to Reno, Nevada, to minimize risk and maximize control. Each instruction he gave demonstrated a meticulous understanding of both human behavior and aviation logistics. The flight back to Reno was tense, a combination of calculated terror and absolute calm. Cooper kept one of the parachutes for himself and attached the remaining 3 to the ransom bags. He instructed that the plane maintain a specific speed and altitude, then requested the rear air stair be lowered mid-flight. At approximately 8 p.m., in heavy rain over southwest Washington, he disappeared. He leaped from the plane with the money strapped securely in a knapsack. No one ever saw him again. FBI investigation files describe the jump as both audacious and technically precise. Cooper had clearly prepared for the escape, using a stealthy rear air stair exit that allowed him to vanish into the darkness and dense forests below. Investigators estimated the altitude at 10,000 feet and the airspeed at roughly 170 knots when he jumped, conditions that would challenge even experienced skydivers. Yet Cooper apparently landed safely, at least survived long enough to vanish completely. The money itself became a critical piece of evidence. Investigators recovered $5,800 of the original $200,000 in 1980 along the banks of the Columbia River in deteriorated condition, partially buried in silt. Bills were still crisp enough to trace, but the discovery raised more questions than answers. How had the money ended up there? Had Cooper survived? Was it a mistake in hiding it? Or had he strategically dropped a portion to mislead authorities? Numerous theories proliferated almost immediately. Some suggested Cooper had been an ex-military paratrooper, using precise knowledge of the Boeing 727 and jump conditions to escape into the night. Others argued he may have perished shortly after the jump, leaving the bulk of the ransom undiscovered. Decades of investigation produced more than 1,000 suspects, from career criminals to quiet professionals. But the FBI never conclusively identified him. Over the years, forensic teams examined the ransom bills, noting their unique serial numbers. Investigators mapped out trajectories, landing zones, and environmental conditions that might explain how Cooper could have evaded capture. Despite these efforts, no definitive trace emerged, and no witness sightings provided reliable leads. The mystery deepened. Cooper had essentially committed the perfect aerial heist, D.B. Cooper's. Hijacking also exposed vulnerabilities in airline security. Within months, the Federal Aviation Administration mandated Cooper vanes mechanical devices to prevent the rear air stair from being lowered in flight. Yet, even with these measures, the psychological impact lingered. The idea that an individual could hijack a commercial airliner, demand ransom, and vanish into the night became a cautionary tale for both aviation authorities and the public. The hijacking occurred in 1971, a period when air travel was less regulated and pre-screening of passengers minimal. Cooper exploited these gaps with calculated precision. Flight attendants were often young women, trained for hospitality rather than security. Passengers were instructed to comply and remain calm, minimizing the risk of confrontation. The entire operation demonstrated a combination of psychological manipulation and logistical mastery. FBI Special Agent J.D. Tippett, assigned to track Cooper's movements post-jump, noted that the skydiving exit was among the most daring in criminal history. Agents studied the man's comportment, attire, and movements, concluding that Cooper had extensive planning and familiarity with parachute equipment. It was unclear whether he had additional ground support or had arranged a pre-planned extraction. The uncertainty fueled public fascination for decades. The cultural impact of Cooper's audacity cannot be overstated. Newspapers published vivid, sometimes sensational accounts of his demeanor, choices, and apparent escape. Public imagination painted him alternately as a criminal mastermind, a folk hero, and an enigma who challenged authority without violence. Books, documentaries, and fictionalized accounts proliferated, each attempting to decode the mystery that the FBI had failed to solve. Meanwhile, amateur sleuths, thrill seekers, and professional investigators pored over every detail. Decades of speculation produced theories involving Oregon forests, the Cascade Mountains, and even Canadian wilderness areas, proposing landing sites based on wind drift, parachute range, and terrain. Some enthusiasts analyzed soil samples, weather reports, and archival flight data. Yet none could provide conclusive proof of Cooper's fate. To this day, D.B. Cooper remains a symbol of the audacious criminal who succeeded against overwhelming odds. His careful, calculated movements, combined with the perfect storm of minimal aviation, security, and tactical skill, have made him a subject of fascination. People imagine where he might have gone, what life he led after the jump. The night after Cooper vanished, the FBI mobilized a massive manhunt. Air Force and local law enforcement teams combed the forests and rivers of southwestern Washington, but every lead dissolved into darkness. Search grids covered miles of rugged terrain, helicopters scoured cliff edges, and agents waded through rivers. All they found were footprints, torn foliage, and the occasional bird startled by the search. Now, it was as if Cooper had simply dissolved into the night sky. Investigators quickly realized they were chasing a ghost. Flight logs, passenger testimonies, and crew interviews were meticulously cataloged. Cooper's calm demeanor, his precise timing, and the accuracy of his instructions suggested not just courage, but expertise. Forensic experts deduced that he had carefully studied the Boeing 727, including its rear air stair, maximum altitude, and airspeed capabilities. This was not the act of an amateur. It was a carefully calculated, professional operation. Suspects came and went. For decades, FBI files listed more than 1,000 individuals considered potential. D.B. Cooper's, one of the most famous suspects, Richard Floyd McCoy Jr., was a former paratrooper and bank robber whose methods bore striking similarities. Yet he was eliminated as a candidate after thorough investigation. Other leads ranged from disgruntled pilots to career criminals with impeccable alibis. Every suspect shared traits with Cooper: discipline, skydiving skill, and criminal cunning, but none matched perfectly. Meanwhile, the recovered ransom money told a partial story. In 1980, a young boy discovered $5,800 of the original $200,000 along the banks of the Columbia River. Investigators examined the serial numbers, traced their circulation, and concluded that Cooper's money had indeed ended up far from civilization. Some bills had been partially buried, suggesting environmental displacement or perhaps deliberate dropping to mislead searchers. This fragmentary evidence deepened the mystery. If Cooper survived, how had he transported the bulk of the money safely out of the region? Over the years, the case became one of the most studied unsolved crimes in American history. Psychologists and criminal profilers attempted to reconstruct Cooper's motivations. He exhibited traits of high intelligence, meticulous planning, and remarkable composure under extreme stress. Unlike most criminals, Cooper left no personal trail, no fingerprints beyond what the FBI could collect aboard the plane. No DNA and no eyewitnesses who could definitively describe his escape. He had calculated every detail to evade capture. Public fascination grew. Newspapers ran headlines celebrating his audacity, dubbing him the vanishing sky pirate. Popular culture embraced him as a modern-day Robin Hood, a man who pulled off a crime with precision and left the system baffled. While he took the money without harming passengers, his boldness, cunning, and complete disappearance captivated the nation. Children's comics, songs, and novels immortalized him. Yet, investigators remained frustrated by the lack of concrete evidence. The FBI never closed the case entirely. Agents revisited old leads, reanalyzed photographs, and even employed new forensic techniques as technology advanced. DNA testing in the 1990s and early 2000s offered no breakthroughs. Advanced mapping and meteorological modeling attempted to reconstruct Cooper's potential landing zones, factoring in wind speed, rain, and altitude. Specialists calculated possible trajectories, yet none provided definitive proof of survival or death. One theory posited that Cooper had been trained as a military paratrooper, capable of handling a night jump in rain-soaked terrain with minimal equipment. Survival experts argued that the landing conditions were treacherous. Dense forest, rivers, rocky cliffs, and low visibility made the jump extraordinarily dangerous. Some believed he perished on impact, while others suggested he had pre-planned extraction points, stashing supplies, or connecting with a ground team waiting nearby. Every possibility remained speculative. Over the decades, amateur sleuths joined the hunt. In the 1980s and 1990s, hundreds of enthusiasts pored over maps, weather reports, and archival flight data, attempting to identify Cooper's landing site. Some focused on the rugged terrain of Southwest Washington. Others explored Oregon and Idaho. Theories ranged from perfectly executed survivalist landings to accidental deaths that left no trace. Each theory added depth to the legend, but no conclusive evidence emerged. The FBI's case files, eventually released to the public, reveal the exhaustive effort invested in the investigation. Agents conducted interviews with every crew member, passenger, and airport employee involved. They examined potential getaway routes, scrutinized financial records, and tracked the serial numbers of ransom bills. They deployed sky searches, canine units, and even collaborated with local residents to monitor wilderness areas for signs of the fugitive. Yet Cooper remained elusive, leaving investigators frustrated and the nation spellbound. One particularly compelling suspect was identified decades later. A man whose personal history aligned with Cooper's known profile. While military records confirmed parachute training, familiarity with aircraft, and a pattern of opportunistic behavior. However, DNA comparisons and alibi verification eventually excluded him. Each elimination reinforced the enigma. D.B. Cooper may have been extraordinarily lucky, extraordinarily skilled, or both. As the years passed, the myth of Cooper grew stronger than the facts. Television specials, documentaries, and podcasts revisited the hijacking, highlighting both the criminal ingenuity and the human drama aboard Flight 305. Passengers shared memories of a calm, polite, yet commanding man who orchestrated one of the most daring crimes in American history. The FBI's inability to capture him enhanced the legend. Elevating the story from crime to cultural mythology, D.B. Cooper's heist influenced security policy worldwide. Within months, the FAA mandated Cooper vanes, preventing rear air stairs from being lowered during flight. Airlines tightened passenger screening, implemented protocols for ransom negotiations, and trained crews for hijacking scenarios. The case became a textbook study in aviation security, criminal psychology, and crisis management. Lessons learned from Flight 305 shaped modern protocols for decades. Yet the psychological fascination endures. Cooper represents a paradox. A criminal who committed a major crime did not harm anyone and vanished completely. People are drawn to the audacity, precision, and mystery. Amateur theorists debate endlessly. Did he survive? Did he spend the money? Did he escape to Canada, Mexico, or remain hidden in the Pacific Northwest? Every nucleus, a photograph, a rumor, or a partial ransom bill ignites public imagination and media attention. In 2016, investigative journalist Jeffrey Gray published new research, analyzing meteorological conditions, terrain, and flight data. His conclusions suggested the jump was survivable under highly skilled conditions, but the exact fate of Cooper remained unconfirmed. In essence, the man who jumped from a 727 with $200,000 in ransom money became a permanent shadow in the annals of American crime. Today, the story continues to inspire fascination, from aviation enthusiasts to true crime communities. D.B. Cooper embodies a unique criminal profile: intelligence, patience, courage, and flawless execution. Decades of investigation produced no definitive answer, leaving his legend untouched and timeless. The combination of daring, meticulous planning, and complete disappearance ensures that Cooper remains a singular figure in criminal history. And while the story of Flight 305 concludes for the passengers and authorities, the legend endures, haunting the imagination of anyone who dreams of the audacious, the impossible, and the unknown. If you think this hijacking was thrilling, wait until you hear about the next one.